And let me give you a bonus one just to add to this, because I love under-promising and over-delivering. Hey everybody, Coach here. Thanks for coming back to another episode, and happy spring 2023 to you. You know, back on Tuesday, we passed that spring equinox, and here we are. However, many of you who I'm speaking to probably haven't seen many signs of spring. Where Maestro and I are right now in northern Texas, the weather cannot make up its mind. 2 days ago, 24 degrees overnight. During the daytime, 48 degrees. Today, we're sitting at 82 degrees with 20-mile-an-hour winds and standing around in shorts and flip-flops. It just is spring. That's the way it is. But speaking of spring, this week I'm bringing to you 6 spring tasks for the landscape to beautify and improve the health of your yard. Hey, I'm glad you're here. Now, I don't know about you, but as a boy growing up, my mama used to get spring cleaning fever like the dickens. My brother and I used to know when it was coming because you'd see the list start to grow, and we always tried to evade and avoid, get outside, be gone doing, you know, young boy things, and oh, hell no. We got pulled into that cleaning vortex every single year. Dusting, cleaning, carpet shampooing, windows, everything, inside and out. It burned a solid weekend every single spring. And like most kids, we just went, Ma. Well, in this case, I hope you don't look at this episode the same way we used to look at spring cleaning when I was growing up. This episode, we're talking about 6 tasks. 6 tasks to get out there and take a look at the landscape and do some things that are probably necessary depending on what you did last fall. Okay, without further ado, let's get after them. Number 6, and I'm going to count them down. They're in no particular order of importance. Number 6 is going to be the lawn. You know, spring turf care can be quite a challenge, but if you think about it from the aspect that winter can really be tough on a lawn, imagine if you were put outside for the last 4 to 5 months enduring all the temperature fluctuations, all the snow, all the rain, all the wind. All of these things can play tough. That's why, like I told you back in that episode right here, 412 of lawn care, got to make sure that you send it into winter nice and healthy so it can come out of winter even healthier. But if that's not the case, here we go. Here's some things that I suggest. Number 1, you might want to think about aerating. You know, if you haven't aerated your lawn in the past 2 years, man, that soil gets compacted. You walk across it once every 7 to 10 days mowing. You know, the mower itself, watering it, things start to compress down. And with that, your root zones get shallower and shallower and shallower. So go get yourself an aerator. There's a bunch of different kinds. You can even get them on Amazon where there's spikes on your feet, you know, and you can walk around on the lawn. But I suggest getting the power aerators where it actually removes cores from the lawn, and then you can rake those things up, dispose of them properly, and then come back with a good quality weed-free compost and top dress the whole lawn. At the same time, doing a nice dose of spring lawn fertilizer. You will see an absolute explosion of lawn growth within the next 4 to 6 weeks, guaranteed. Now, with that being said, make sure that you don't over-fertilize. Put it on according to the manufacturer's directions. So many people said, well, I haven't done it in 2 years, so I'll double the dose. It's a great way to burn your lawn and end up with real big burn spots. Make sure that your drop spreader or your whirlybird, or however you put it on, is in good working order. Make sure those springs work on that drop spreader correctly. Make sure that that little door on your whirlybird works correctly, because there's nothing worse than all of a sudden you set it at 7 like the manufacturer says and it's dumping at 14. There's nothing worse. So lawn aeration, top dressing, and fertilizer, a very good way to kick off good spring turf lawn care. All right, let's move on to our second part of our turf care. Many of you, like the new friends that we're staying with right now, they got a couple, 3 dogs. One of them's a digger. And you can tell that in many spots, the dogs have literally killed the lawn. Literally, it's dead, it's just dirt. And so spring is a great time to go out there, segregate doggo for a little while from the area, and then get in there and scratch that up. Maybe even have to rototill it a bit. Add a little bit of compost or planting mix, some type of organic matter, and then come back, grade it out, firm it up, seed it, reseed it, and then go ahead and top dress it. Let it come back up and start having that full lush lawn that you probably had at one time. It just got away from you. Now is the time of year to get on that and have it successfully done before the heat of the summer comes along. Hey, let's move on to number 5. You know, number 5 is a frustrating thing for many, many people. As a matter of fact, all of these are kind of frustrating if you let them get beyond your control. This particular topic is weeds, and weeds tend to be a nuisance, a burr in your saddle, so to speak. And if you don't get on them early, and in some cases, in southern parts and in warmer parts of the country and world, you know, if you get on them early, they will germinate in January and February. And you swear that that was all done last fall, but here they are. Get on them early when they're small. If you let them get tap roots, if you let them get to the point where they start having runners and rhizomes and all the other stuff, it becomes that much harder. And generally when they're small, you can handle them in a very environmentally safe fashion. Get out there with a hula hoe or a hoe, even hand picking them out of some of your smaller beds. And if you let them get really big, sorry guys, sometimes only chemical control will get it back in order. I really suggest you find a chemical control that probably is translocative and contact-based herbicide. Try to stay away from the systemic stuff. I don't really prefer those kinds of things. But, you know, people don't like Roundup. Glyphosate scares people. I used glyphosate for many, many years and had great success on it. Even let it sit there, let everything die off. I let it go for a month and then I came back in and redid stuff. Didn't have any problem. I don't have a third eye and I don't have 11 fingers. So it is necessary at times, but I do understand the overuse of it and I don't suggest that. Okay, let's count down to number 4. Number 4 is pruning. And you're probably wondering why I'm talking about pruning this time of year. Many times winters really wreak havoc and can sometimes, in many cases, just leave the calendar in a scorched earth manner, knocking over trees, knocking over and breaking limbs, snow loads on branches of shrubs and other things that you really prized, but this winter just tend to be a little too heavy. Well, now's the time to go out and clean it up. Clean it up in a responsible manner. Make sure if you do it yourself, especially trees, that you know what the heck you're doing. You're doing it in a very safe manner. If power tools are coming out, you know, might want to bone up on the lower altitude stuff before you start doing the high altitude stuff. And make sure that things are cut properly. Make sure you have that undercut first and then do the outer cut. Go back and do it. Leave a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch or so, depending on the size there. Leave that before the branch collar so that it heals itself. You don't necessarily have to spray any sort of pruning paint on it. Mother Nature knows how to seal those wounds off all by herself, I guarantee it. Besides, you're really reducing the chance of diseases and other things entering into the vascular system of the tree or plant that you probably place a lot of value on. So take care of it. It probably will take you half a day. You may have to do a dump run after, but still, pruning is very, very important. You might take a whole season for it to rebound if it was badly damaged. Now, if you have something that is dangerous, please go out and hire a pro. You know, don't be trying to take something down right next to your house if it's way too big and it has done a split right down the middle. Have somebody come out that knows what the heck they're doing, maybe a little bit more than you. There are way too many cases of people getting injured. Okay, so pruning. If you're doing shrubbery and stuff, spring's a great time. If you didn't do it last fall, it's a good time, but still try to concentrate on 25 to 30% of the shrub at any one time. You shouldn't probably take much more off of that. I would suggest maybe a 20% and then watch that thing flush out. It's got all kinds of new growth coming out anyway, but now you're taking a lot of the terminal stuff off, so it's gonna thicken up and really, really go gangbusters over the next 4 to 8 weeks. Okay, number 3, combination of Varmint Kong. Varmint Kong is our furry little non-friends that tend to become very active in the springtime after they kind of come out of dormancy themselves. We're talking gophers, voles, moles, ground squirrels, all kinds of furry little critters that tend to find their way into our landscape and that can do a tremendous amount of damage, literally decimate a landscape in a single season. And if you don't inspect, notice, and remove pretty quick, these guys tend to reproduce at a very young age. And you can have 2 gophers in March and you'll have 20 gophers by August. And that is not going to be good. It's not going to be good for safety-wise, it's not going to be good for plant-wise, and everything you put in the ground, chances are you're going to end up just throwing your money down a rat hole. Or in this case, a gopher hole. So, attack it from a couple of different aspects. I'm not a big fan of poisonous bait, and I do speak from something of a professional level because I was in the pest control industry for a brief period of time, about a year. And in this particular case, I found that the old-fashioned methods were great. And this platform, YouTube itself, has a bazillion controls out there on how to eradicate these burrowing rodent problems. I like the old Maccabee traps for gophers and moles. I really like the gopher hawk spring-loaded type of thing, and you just take care of them that way. Now, for some of you PETA lovers out there, the ones that think that they should be live trapped, if you've got a way, please drop it in the comment below. I'd love to know how you do it. When it comes to ground squirrels are a whole nother issue too. How do you eradicate them? Unless you have a whole bunch of hawks and falcons and owls and other things in your neighborhood, chances are they're going to get out of control. Many times, I can remember as a teenage boy getting hired by some of the ranchers where I grew up, and they would just give me free rein with my 22 and my 4X scope, and I was allowed to take out as many ground squirrels as I could because their colonies were really a risk to the cattle that the ranchers had and the horses that they rode. So I took care of them that way. I'll tell you a quick story. One of the best gopher controls I have ever seen, gophers and mice, is a good, very energetic hunting cat. I can remember our cat, Pumpkin, God rest her soul. She had nothing to do with the color. That was just happened to be her name. But she was a hunter extraordinaire, and she was a show-off. She had the patience of Job that would go out in the fields and literally sit there for hours until the gophers came up. She'd rip them out of their burrow, she'd take care of them, carry them back to our family room door, throw them against the window and said, "Yeah, look what I did for you." She did that with mice quite frequently. And I'm talking about in her lifetime, I would probably comfortably say, with all transparency, 500, easily 500 mice and gophers combined over her lifetime. She was a really good, energetic cat. So if you have one, prize it, take care of it, put it to work. Anyway, burrowing rodents. Other things that we have to be looking at is other sorts of bug pests that come alive very quickly. Things like aphids and thrips, spider mites. These kinds of bugs that tend to come out of dormancy and find the new shoots, the new stuff, the new flowers. You know, how many times have you gone out to roses this time of year where the buds are just starting to form up? And there they are, just aphid, just slathered all over the terminal growth and all over the buds. They can be eradicated. The thing that I suggest is following 4 steps. 1, to inspect. 2, to identify. 3, to eradicate in whatever form or fashion you feel best on. and then go ahead and care for, prune, feed, and plant. Okay, let's count down to number 2. How about planting beds and beautification? This is the time of year, and if you remember last week's video, I talked about being that type of person that gets all jazzed and excited about the spring. They want to do something, and maybe they do a little something, and then by summer it all kind of wanes, life takes over again, and you kind of lose your momentum. But this time of year, planting beds and beautification is a prime time, probably the best time of the year to get out to the nursery. And I can remember managing those nurseries and this time of year when all the fresh new stuff would come in, all the color, all the smells that went along with nursery. Man, I miss that sometimes, I really do. But you can go out there and get yourself a couple of flats. You can beautify up your beds and plant the color so you're going to have something later this spring and through summer. Now there are some annuals that, yeah, it's still really early, and I get it. For you guys up in the northern latitudes, yeah, it's going to be a while. It might even be a month to 6 weeks before you can do it. I get it. But don't miss out on that spring. Then, once you get everything done, you've planted correctly, you've done all the feeding, come back with a nice new fresh coat of mulch of whatever kind you can find. That really sets off all that new stuff, and it looks so good when those first annuals start popping for you with that brand new backdrop of fresh new mulch. Beautification this time of year. And that's a combination of a bunch of things. You can have a beautiful, brand new planted borders and everything else. You've got your new lawn that you've just beautified, aerated, fed, and composted. Well, you're gonna have a flagship by the time Memorial Day comes around, or 4th of July, depending on where you live. So think about it. Get out there and get after it one Saturday. Get out and find yourself a cup of joe, go to the nursery, spend a couple of bucks and really beautify those beds. It is also a very good time right now to find yourself some summer bulbs. Summer bulbs. Plant them now for later on in June, July, and August coming up. You can find Asiatic lilies, you can find calla lilies, you can find all kinds of things out there. They are in the garden centers today because I have seen them. Okay, number 1, we're talking about our last one, is diseases. Spring is a notorious season for getting us all jazzed, and then we end up with things like bugs, and now we got diseases too. Holy crap, what do you have to do to be successful? Diligence is my best advice for you. Diligence. You know, our lawns can get infested with turf diseases. Things like rust and mildews, molds and funguses. These are easily corrected with fertilizers that have fungicides and other things in them. Some of the biggest frustrations is when your stone fruits come out and they have the beautiful bloom, and if a frost didn't kill the bloom, you actually maybe have some fruit set, and now your leaves are coming out, and then you get a nice spring rain, and suddenly the peach leaf curl sets in. Well, a lot of that should have been taken care of over the winter with a 3 series spray with a copper base. There are some products out there that are safe to use, but not during the bloom. You can use it right after the bloom, and it will knock it down, but it will not eliminate it. It will just prevent it from coming further on. Look under, I think the Bonide company has a product that you can use. So that's generally my top 6 tasks. Are they the only tasks in spring? Oh, of course not. They're certainly not. But they are probably in the top 10 for sure. And let me give you a bonus one just to add to this, because I love under-promising and over-delivering. Try your irrigation system. Once your last freeze is done, it's time to activate that system, if you have one. We want to go out and start in the field and work back to the valves. Check all the heads, cut all turf away from the heads, pull up, remove nozzles, clean filters, inspect the nozzle, replace it, make sure that your arc and everything is correctly set, and then work your way back towards the valves. Turn on your check valve or your vacuum breaker, whatever you might have, and turn it on slowly. Look at the valves themselves. If you did not winterize, chances are you might have some freeze cracks. If you did winterize, turn it on slow anyway. We don't want a water hammer slamming into those valves really hard. Inspect the valves as you turn it on. If you have no leaks in your valve assembly, good job. Now, once you've pressurized, go ahead and turn on each valve, preferably manually. And then, if everything is working correctly, work your way back to the timer and make sure that you can turn them on automatically and manually. Set your timers. This time of year, I wouldn't think you'd need to water too much yet. And then as the days get longer and the days get warmer, you can adjust up. Guys, that's what I have for you today. I hope you got something out of it. Please check out my store. We got the book there and Homescape 1.0. Thanks to Corey last week for picking up Homescape 1.0. I greatly appreciate it, and I'm there for you if you have any questions. By the way, all you free 15-steppers, you might want to step up to the book sometime. Check out the Amazon store, and I'll catch you next Friday. As always, to your landscape success, good luck this spring, and I'm there for you if you need me. Bye for now.